5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Walk with me through the cellar door.
A storm is coming, Francis.
A portal to a more skeptical world.
Cellar Door Skeptics begins right now. Prepare for the revolution with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna.
Oh, welcome to another episode of Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. It's been a challenging night tonight. I have to broadcast from a hotel Wi-Fi. Unfortunately, it is not always the best, so I'm here. If it caves out, so be it. Hopefully Hannah and boys can carry on. But I wanted to continue to do an episode this week, even though last night was not able to happen. So thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We are here tonight to talk about environmentalism, the Democratic Party, and some of their stances. Without further ado, though, I will bring on our co-hosts, Boyce and Chris Hanna. How are you doing tonight, sirs?
Sirs. I can never get over that.
Sir. Is it wrong to call you a sir? I don't know. Maybe it's all this Texas whiskey and Texas environment that's got me calling you a sir. I don't know.
Don't call me sir. I work for a living.
A lot of sirs work for a living, my friend.
Negative. Not in the military.
That's tough.
Anyway, how are you gents doing tonight?
We're clicking away at the computers here. I'm trying to share, which is crazy because everything on the right side of my screen is like I don't know, maybe a 10-second delay from everything on the left side of my screen. It's the same video and same pictures going on. But yeah, no, we're trying to get back into creating images and creating all of the media and everything that used to be really useful for the stuff that we used to do for the show and everything. So I'm trying to get back in because Tanner, you brought the closest thing to your home base with you, which is your new or heavy duty MacBook, but you're still lacking as far as equipment. So you sound a little bit like you're talking into a laptop microphone tonight. Is that pretty much the case here?
It is 100% case here. And the weird thing is because of the way the headphones work, I get a feedback. So sometimes I may be delayed and I'm thinking I'm talking to you. And the next thing you know, I'm like, oh, I can hear me in my head. And it's just weird. Oh, but yes,
maybe it's like, we'll be like tonight, what is it? When someone calls into the news or whatever, like a reporter was like reporting from the field.
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Anna, did you say something?
Yeah. Or like when we ask you a question, you have to sit there and stare
for like 7 seconds.
And then start talking.
Well, I will say officially tonight's episode is brought to you by TX Whiskey. The whiskey of Texas, I guess. It's like the only whiskey that they drink down here.
It doesn't surprise me. I met a gentleman who wore nothing but Texas stuff today, and I was weirded out by that. So everybody drinking the same whiskey in a bar, I would either be awesome because like, hey, we're at that place's home base, and then you're like, no, this is just Bill's bar, and it's like, why is everybody drinking the same thing? This is way too close to like the alcohol version of the Stepford Wives or something. Like, we must all drink the same thing.
So I apologize if the audio is a little rough on my end. I do have it running through a processor, but it only does so much. So it's not like my enhanced system at home. But hopefully it'll be enough for everybody to get through tonight. To begin with, though, I think we got to talk a little bit with Boyce. Because Boyce has spent the last, I think, 9 months, maybe 10 months campaigning for an individual who is officially conceded in the running for the Democratic candidate. Boyce, tell us a little bit about Andrew Yang's concession?
Well, technically, it's been a year already. Believe it or not,
Longer than 9 months.
Yeah, I mean my first Andrew Yang video on February 10th last year. I went and checked it in the catalog, and the next day, February 11th, is when he suspended his campaign. So that hurt. But yeah, he just saw there's no path forward. He couldn't morally keep taking donations, man, and said, you know what, I don't see a path forward. We didn't overperform in either Iowa or New Hampshire. Old white people don't like me. And so I guess that's what it comes down to, is old white people don't like me, type of thing. Because that's New Hampshire and Iowa. Whiter, older, not older, but whiter for sure. And there's no, I would like to see him stick around for a more of a minority representation, a little more diverse voting group with South Carolina, Nevada. But, he had more information about his money, what it comes right down to. Can he afford to keep these offices open in these other 2 states for the next 2 weeks? So I don't know. He just said, I don't see a path forward, and that was that. And I was actually live streaming when he announced it, and I was like, oh, shit.
I think that's interesting, but I think one of the questions that we have, right, is, and that's fine. He's conceded. I don't think that's the end of Andrew Yang personally. I think that he came out extremely strong, and I think that he's positioning himself for a run either in 4 or 8 years, right?
Yeah, most likely.
Do you think any of the candidates, and we could go individually, do you think any of the candidates will actually bring him on as a vice president?
I think Tulsi would, because she's already picked up and said, I will carry on the mantle of UBI. But I think Joe Biden, if he was politically savvy and had a brain and wasn't going through a little bit of, dementia, he might actually have good advice to pick up someone with a little bit of a more progressive style that's younger and more, I guess you say, social media aware. But Joe Biden, maybe because he's been friendly with everybody, you just never know. Ruh-roh. Looks like everybody lost signal. Well, that's not good, folks. It's just me. Yeah, so Andrew Yang stepped down, and as a VP, I could see him being a VP consideration. I don't know if anybody's actually going to pick him up. That remains to be seen. I could see him becoming like maybe a cabinet position for Bernie or someone else. Chris, you're back. Outstanding. Are you guys having some more technical difficulties still? It looks like it. All righty. There you are. We lost Hannah. We're losing everybody.
Sorry.
I was all by myself. I got scared. I told them all to vote Yang anyway.
Sorry about that. I'm even on a hotspot. I even brought my hotspot today. So
yeah.
Anyway, so you were saying so Tulsi will pick him up, but you're not confident specifically that anyone else would.
I don't know if anybody else would. Period. Just because the whole point of having a VP is really to get more votes in the general. I could see if someone was like, I would love to see Bernie drop the federal jobs guarantee, pick up universal basic income, and go with Andrew. And I think that'd be a killer ticket, because it's the progressive and the more of because Andrew Yang and Bernie both attract Trump supporters and moderates and independents and libertarians and Democrats and I said socialists, not socialists, but you know what I mean. So I think if I could have it my way, I would love to see Bernie take the federal jobs guarantee out and put universal basic income in with a freedom dividend, and keep the universal health care or the Medicare for all. I think that'd be a good ticket. That's for me personally. Politically, I don't think Bernie would do that, because I don't think he fundamentally believes that universal basic income is the answer. I think he thinks that $15 an hour and the federal jobs guarantee is the path forward for him. And why would he change? It's working for him. So that's what I personally think.
Yeah. And I think what's sad is if he actually would do that, right? If he would actually pick up a few of Yang's stances, especially UBI, because that seems like a pretty simple thing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are on board. I understand the opposition with saying, hey, I don't want rich people to get this, credit too. But at the exact same time, they're just going to be paying it back in taxes. So who cares? Andrew Yang's explained this whole thing 100 times now.
Well, we all get a tax break every month. If we get a tax return every month, they just get $1,000 less tax return. They just pay in more than anybody else does. But, it's not regressive. It's actually a progressive tax system. But you can say it to your blue in the face. People don't want to hear it. They don't want to listen. They're going to stick to their guns. But, yeah, it would be – I think that'd be a home run because Bernie's ground game and Andrew Yang's Twitter and Facebook online presence, and Bernie's too, is bar none. And to see the old generation and the new generation kind of going hand in hand and just taking on the establishment, because Bernie's anti-corruption, anti-corporate, pretty much sharking and manipulation, and so is Andrew. I'd love to see him take on the corporate bullshit. I really like to see Bernie even take on the democracy dollars to help with the voting, to get people of extreme poverty who have $0 to actually be able to donate to a political campaign and participate in the actual election.
Yeah. And I do think Bernie has the most to gain personally from the Andrew Yang dropping. I'll joke he retires, right? He's not really retiring, but he's on
vacation.
We talk about these things. I think the big thing here is that he gave a good run, came out very strong. There was a huge internet following. And I think the big thing that we learned here is grassroots works, right? Mm-hmm. Again,
absolutely.
Grassroots works.
Yep.
We got to keep saying this thing over and over and over and over again. And that's the thing Bernie's been preaching for how many years. And I think it fits into that group. And I get that there's a lot of libertarian style supporters of Yang, but I also think that if we are very challenging of that, and I think Bernie has adapted in the past, he may be able to pick up some of these supporters. And I think that's the biggest gain Bernie has right now out of everything else.
I think if I could see Bernie doing it to say, you know what, I'm going to run away with this fucker right now. Andrew, let's have a discussion. Let's have a meeting. I would like to bring you on and get your support if I go universal basic income, maybe democracy dollars, and take the policies of his that he likes and say, you know what, I'm going to phase these in. And this is how I see the freedom dividend. I might do it a little differently. Maybe they can both compromise a little bit and say, if you earn over $1 million a year, you don't get it. Whatever. Who fucking knows? Just to get votes, and to appease his base as well. But I could see someone like Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren who are really, really floundering. Honestly, they're slipping to say, you know what, I'm going to try and suck up some Andrew Yang supporters and get back in the race and to slow my decline, really. But you never know. It could just, it could be just bullshit. They're going to move forward. They have their own campaign to run. They don't want to give someone too much credit, you know what I mean, by bringing them on. So you just never know, man. There's options, but Andrew Yang himself, he closed his offices in Nevada and South Carolina and said, I'm still on the ballot, but I'm not campaigning, but there are some people that said they're going to vote for him in the primary no matter what. And I don't blame him. I put a lot of work into it. I might still. Just depends on how the race is looking. Just to vote for him, to say that I put the work in, I think he's earned my vote, even though he's fucking out. But if Bernie or Tulsi or anybody else picks up universal basic income, not anybody else, I won't say that. Not fucking Pete.
Yeah, not Blueberry.
Not dipshit. Nope. Not the dreaded bees. Yeah, and Klobuchar, no thank you. Pete, no thank you. Biden, no thank you. Honestly, Biden. I would go with Biden just in the hopes that he would not make it through a full term and then hand it over to Yang, honestly. Not to be morbid, but that's the truth.
Yeah. And I would agree with that. I hope none of those other – I hope he doesn't try and back any of those other people because that would just be very sad.
Well, and Tulsi already came out. He already said, if any other candidate supports universal basic income, I will endorse them. But he has not come out to endorse Tulsi after she said she'd endorse and add UBI because she has no path forward either, really. So I think he's like, not you, not you. Love you, Tulsi, but not you. Sorry, lady, as far as that goes. Anyway.
Fair enough. So I think we've exhausted the Andrew Yang thing, and I don't mean to pick on you boys. I just think it was a very interesting discussion because I was kind of surprised, to be honest with you, that he dropped out so fast. I was very surprised, and I get the money thing, and I don't. It's kind of funny because he's frugal, right? So it makes sense. I was kind of hoping for a little bit longer, at least through Super Tuesday.
Yeah,
at least through Super Tuesday.
Yeah, that's the thing. I thought so too. I think it's a little bit of an early pull, but I don't have all the information he had. Maybe he dropped out before it was only 6% reporting. So he must have had people in all these different precincts saying, "Doesn't look good here, boss," and said, "Fuck it, we're done." He got 8th in New Hampshire, worse than Iowa, and I was like, "Oh God." Fucking Bloomberg beat him in Iowa or New Hampshire. Didn't even fucking try.
Yeah, I know. And that's what the disgusting thing is because Bloomberg is an awful candidate. Like, just look at his history. Like, I don't care what he says now.
Stop and frisk, you piece of shit. That's all I got to say about him.
Exactly. Like, it's befuddling to me. I had somebody say, if Pete doesn't get in, I'm going to vote for Bloomberg. And I'm saying, if Bloomberg gets in over Pete, we've got a huge problem. And I'll say this on the podcast right now. Like, I'll raise my hand. We'll do this whole thing. I was not super sold on this whole anti-Bernie conspiracy theory thing, right? Like, I'm very cautious of that from 2016 with the Hillary. Just cautious. But I'm going to tell you right now, if Bloomberg comes all the way back and wins, there's a conspiracy. And at that point, then I'm saying there's no longer a revolution. Now it's anarchy. And I'm all for it. I'll punch a Nazi. I'll say this again 100 times over on this program. I'll punch a Nazi. You should all punch Nazis. But I'm going to fucking come after Bloomberg like you don't believe, because that's some bullshit. If that conspiracy, like that dude gets in. That dude's a racist. He's a conservative at heart. Yes. I have nothing good about that guy to say.
For me, if Bloomberg was, let's just say this is a fucking no case. I don't see a path for him forward by just selling commercial or buying commercials and throwing around Obama's name and Andrew Yang's name and Bernie's names in his own ads. He's putting in other candidates. Like, it's a weird correlation he's trying to make. But if he was to literally buy this nomination from the DNC, that means the DNC is for sale. Fuck the DNC. Third party time. They need to be replaced.
Yeah, and that's what I talk about when we talk about rioting and anarchy. That's what I'm talking about right here.
Third party. Fuck that noise.
Yeah, especially because a Bloomberg means a Trump. And if Trump gets in, fuck this world.
Yeah.
Sorry. I guess F word, explicit tag, you can all swear all you want. It is what it is.
It's in the title, man. Environmental bullshit on parade.
So speaking of which, we have some good news that has come out. There is a band that's reuniting for a tour, and I'm gonna not lie and say that I am ultra excited, beyond excitedness, like to the point where I don't even know how to express myself a little bit. Hence the title of the episode.
It involves a lot of pee in your pants, doesn't it?
It does. So I got a little taste for everybody that I think I'll play.
You're going to get knocked down.
Exactly. That's what it is right there. I don't even know how to
so fucking crazy.
Not be here right now.
I can't sit down. Turn it off. I want to stand out and start slamming my goddamn head on the wall.
Yeah, they're coming to Calgary too. I was kind of excited about that. I don't know if I'll be able to get tickets, but I'm gonna try.
If you have not got tickets by now, you're probably gonna miss it.
There's still some for sale in Detroit for $150.
Oh God.
Hey, that's not bad, man. I paid $125 before all the fees and everything, and I'll tell you what, 100% worth it. Not gonna lie, my wife is going with me. That's the best part of this whole thing. Like, she messaged me when she found out about it, she's like, hey, you want to go see Rage Against the Machine? They're going to have the original lineup. And I was like, yes. Like, did you know who I am? And so, yeah, it's amazing. My wife and I are going to fucking go see Rage Against the Machine in the original lineup. And the best part about this whole thing is there's a lot of people that are arguing about the fact that the tickets are outrageous and they're, meant for privileged people and this and that. And I won't lie and say that maybe it's not. But at the exact same time, he's taking the money and donating it. You just can't pass that up.
What's the money being donated to?
He's going to pick local charities that have anything to do with abused domestic spouses, to environmentalism, anything that's local in each one of the areas. So every local area is going to get a donation from their group.
Okay.
Yeah, I can chip in on that shit.
I can too.
Yeah.
I can get that. I can get behind that.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny because somebody was like, well, like you must be privileged enough you get to go. And it's like, fine, that's fair. But at the same time, at least my money's going to something good, because I would normally donate my money anyway. So it's just like another avenue for me to donate my money.
Fair.
But I am very excited about this.
Yeah, my daughter wants to go if I do go, because I was going to go New Mexico, Arizona, because those are the first 4 that was noted. And I told her I can't afford to fly 2 people, have a hotel room, and the tickets. So she was real bummed, but now maybe she'll get a job. Buy a fucking ticket.
I mean, to be fair, isn't that why most people got jobs as to be fair, isn't that why most people got jobs as teenagers, was so they could pay to go to concerts and shit?
And buy baseball cards.
And buy drugs.
Nah.
Ooh,
Drugs.
am I not supposed to say that? And buy alcohol. Ooh, I'm not supposed to say that either.
No, we stole
But
alcohol.
it's a F-rated podcast, so fuck it.
We stole alcohol.
F-rated?
Legally, so we just stole it instead.
See, I had a different experience as a teenager, because when I was 16, I went to Germany where it was legal to drink. Ooh. So for me, it wasn't risque. I was just like, oh, okay, you guys are doing this all the time. Let's just pitter patter. Let's get at her, right?
Exactly.
Guten
Get her
Tag.
done.
Yeah, it was great. And then I came home and my friends were just starting to drink, and I'm like, man, I've had 3 months of hardcore training and you guys can't keep up. So I got bored real fast.
Yeah. What's this Molson Ice bullshit?
What do you mean you guys can't down half a 2.6 of vodka and then go out? Like, come on.
Yeah, I don't know. That's crazy. Anyway, so needless to say, I'm excited because of Rage Against the Machine. I'm very excited to see them. I've seen Prophets of Rage before, twice, but never Rage Against the Machine in its true entirety. So I'm excited to see it. But speaking of which, I thought we would talk a little bit about equality versus equity. And I only say this because this kind of came up on my feed more than one time. It's come up on our Cellar Door Skeptics feed more than one time. And essentially what's happened is people like to ask the question, right? What's the difference between equality and equity? And the problem becomes is that everybody just sees this as a discussion about why equality is the only way we have to go. And that's just not true. And so I wanted to have a real quick conversation around this, just because it's been such a hot topic at least in our community, that if we don't have this conversation, we need to address it. And so the difference between equality and equity, right, is the fact that equality says they change and allow for everybody to have an equal chance, where equity says that it creates a level playing field for all of those in play. So if it's only white people per se in play, you're going to have equality and equity essentially be very similar to what it is. But when you start taking minorities that have different avenues or different upbringings, different job scenarios, that's when we have to create the equity. And this is a whole different discussion, because without the ability to create equity for everything, we are not able to have true equality. So when Republicans start saying, well, we're on board with equality, but that's when you have to have a conversation about equity. So have either of you heard of this concept before? Is this like something that's come up in your groups or your circles before?
Absolutely. It is something that had to be explained to me a little bit at first, because I understood what I understood as equality conceptually speaking anyways years ago is pretty much what equity is now. Is that was kind of how I framed it, and then it started to be clear to me that, well, no, equality doesn't work the same way, because it's about giving everybody the exact same thing. Equity just gives everybody a fair chance. What the hell was that one picture? It's there's the three kids standing at a fence trying to look over the fence to watch a baseball game, and there's a tall, a medium, and a small kid there, just to use standard fast food measurements. And they each get a box to stand on, and the box is enough for the middle kid to see over the fence, but the tall kid could already see over the fence, so now he's just seeing more over the fence, and the small kid can't see over the fence. And that's under equality. But under equity, the small kid gets 2 boxes and they can see over just fine. Medium kid gets 1 box, can see over just fine, and then tall kid doesn't get anything, but they didn't need anything to be able to see over the fence to begin with. That's kind of like the loose little metaphor that I use to understand the difference between equality and equity, because conceptually we might frame them the same way in our brains, but when we put it into practice, just because everybody has a supposed fair chance doesn't exactly mean that everybody actually has a fair chance. And that's what I liked about the equity analogy that I used, is that it kind of gives you an idea of how privilege factors into it. Hey, that's what I was just talking about. It's like he was listening.
Well, to me, it's there's a difference. I think this comes down to when there's a difference between equal opportunity doesn't equal it's not the same as equal outcomes.
Right.
Same kind of premise. Where it's really hard to get the same outcome, like where everybody gets the same benefit. When some people are so far ahead, there's no way to make it equal. The boxes can't be high enough, like in that scenario. Right. Oh, and the wheelchair. I like the wheelchair one too. That's actually a good one. Accessibility. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a better way of approaching the uncomfortable topic that is privilege.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Because as much as we want to acknowledge it and be better about it, it's still one of those things that everybody seems to have a hard time dealing with. Is you have a privilege. It's not that you have a guaranteed outcome of success. You just have a higher likelihood of success because of your background. Yeah,
there's equal opportunity. There's equal outcomes. It's just one's just not attainable.
Exactly.
I don't think either are attainable, because, like I said, some people are so far ahead. Equal opportunity means they're still going to be farther ahead when it comes right down to it, but we can't undo that technically.
Yeah. And I think that one of the big concepts here, right, is we talk about the Democratic Party, right, and how we vote all the time on the show. I mean, we spent the last, 28 minutes having that conversation. So, when you look at Andrew Yang, right, what is he trying to do? He's handing out UBI. He's trying to give more boxes to those that need them than those that don't. And that's the idea behind that whole thing. And I'll pick on Andrew Yang only because I really like his UBI idea. And I think it's kind of, again, I'll say this, I think it's a shame he's dropped out so early. But the big concept on his side, right, is the fact that he goes, okay, hey, look at this. If I give $1,000 to somebody that makes less than $30,000 a year, what impact does that have on their life? If I give $1,000 to somebody that makes $500,000 a year, what impact does that have on their life?
Yes.
The guy that makes $500K, the impact is so minimal, it's not even funny. So it's not even worth having the conversation. Like, I don't even care if that guy gets taxed on. Right? Who cares if he gets $1,000 a month? It's inconsequential. But the person that makes $30,000 a year that gets $1,000 a month, that's huge. What's your medical expenses? My medical bills for a family is $500 a month. $500K a month, or not $500 a month.
That's a lot of K.
Sorry. So think about that. $1,000 in income for me That covers more than half of my medical bills. And that's only my premium. That's not my deductible.
Yeah.
Think about that.
And out of pocket daily expenses, $50 go to the emergency room, $25 go to the doc. It's swallowed up pretty quickly. Well, that's why I think that the whole point of the freedom dividend and the universal basic income is pointless without Medicare for all.
Right.
So,
but it does allow for a starting point, though.
Yes, it's still a floor. It's a floor to build off of. Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's the part with Yang's campaign, right? Is that he's not saying I have the answers. He's not saying that everything's going to happen. He's not saying I'm going to bring all these things together. What he's saying is I'm going to give you a background. And the more we have these conversations, the more I actually think UBI is almost more important than Medicare for all. And I only say this, I know you may disagree, but I only say this because of the fact that what it does is it brings to light all these other problems. And if you don't have representatives that want to fix these problems, we've got a problem. We got a bigger problem. Andrew Yang has committed to fix the problems. Bernie has committed to fix the problems. Elizabeth Warren has committed to fix the problems. We have 3 candidates right there who have openly committed to fix the problems.
Yeah.
So I have no problem handing people $1,000 a month because that's an immediate fix. And like in warehousing industry, and the only reason I say this, boys, and you can rebut me in a minute, but the reason I say this is because in the warehouse industry, when we find a problem, right, we go, what is your immediate fix? What's our short-term solution? What's our long-term solution? What's a mid-term solution, right? Those type of things. And when we say short-term solution, we don't look at a Pareto chart or any of these other things. We just drive into what's going to fix this right now. So if people are bleeding because of medical, because of the fact that inflation has gone up more than income, the fact that Trump has not given us high-paying jobs,
right?
If $1,000 immediately fixes that, why would we not say yes?
I agree, but I'm just thinking. So there's 2 points of view on this. One, what's the point in giving someone $1,000 of our tax money if it's just going to be given back to the private insurance business, the for-profit health industry? They're the one that stands to benefit the most because 400,000 people a year file bankruptcy because of medical costs. So we're just going to be bailing out the healthcare industry if we don't fix the healthcare system as well. And the other side of it is if you shut someone in a room for a week and they're starving, they come out, do they want health insurance or do they want some fucking money to eat some food? So I understand both points of view, but I have a funny feeling that our tax money is just going to go bailing out the healthcare industry for-profit system as it is right now. It's just got to be addressed.
Sounds about right.
Buddy, what do you think?
No, I very much agree with what Boyce was just saying there. It's a Band-Aid to the full problem. As Boyce was saying, how many hundreds of thousands of people file bankruptcy every year over medical expenses? 400,000
in America alone.
That's disgusting to think about. Because when you think about it, that's literally making a commodity of people's right to just live, basically. Healthcare is one of our basic needs. Preventative healthcare is one of the reasons why, for a first world country, the U.S. is really comparable in terms of health outcomes to third world countries. Yeah. Because people wait until they're dying to go get healthcare because they can't just go in because, they might have something that's like a flu where, it's a lot of people die from the flu, but we never really talk about it. And all we need is for just people to have access to something just in case, that's one of the biggest differences between Canada and America, as I've seen it, is that in Canada, at least we can go get looked at by a doctor and not have to worry. I mean, our healthcare system is not perfect, and I can tell you a couple of different ways that we need to be working on it because we still have to pay for drugs. We still have private insurance that will fuck around with what they will and won't cover, and they'll jerk you around because private industry doesn't give a shit about you. There are other healthcare that aren't covered. For example, mental health is one of the worst covered pieces of healthcare in they're the first units to get cut when they're building a hospital. There was a hospital that was built in, and this is while I was getting my degree. And that was one thing that my professor was talking about, was how they had already begun scaling back the mental health ward of it, because that's typically it's seen as more of a luxury as opposed to what it actually is, which is a need. Especially in a place like Alberta, where we kind of need everybody to kind of get access to something so they can get some help, because we keep voting for the UCP for starters. And to what it actually is, which is a need. Especially in a place like Alberta, where we kind of need everybody. Oh, there we go.
Well, that sounds weird.
Thanks, Tantan. Let's get back on track with that one. So anyways, yeah, it's treating healthcare like a more of a luxury than a need, than what it actually is a need, is really just going to kind of keep fueling the same system. And yeah, it's great that everybody's got that base extra $1,000 a month, especially for, the lowest income people. That's $12,000 a year. Yeah, that's below minimum wage, but that's $12,000 a year that could cover, other necessities, food, or even just things that just go a little bit beyond, so you have a life that doesn't feel like you're just scraping by.
Mm-hmm. Well, I will say this though, Medicare for all won't help solve the biggest
health
problem
of it. There's a year that could cover other necessities. What you doing, Tanner?
Stop playing games. Sorry. So Medicare for all won't solve the biggest problem we have, is just the flat out the poverty, the war on poverty we have here, and not exactly a war, but we are losing. And so it won't help with homelessness, which I think will be, I won't say eradicated, but it will be curbed significantly. And if the people that are homeless that have the universal basic income coming in and they still don't take shelter, then we got a mental health crisis that's glaring. Then we can focus like, okay, these people really need some mental health and interventions. So I'm conflicted on that, because UBI, the Freedom Dividend, would help eradicate poverty and help grow small communities, or the most poorest community like West Virginia and Mississippi, where the cost of living is so low, you can get by a husband and wife or boyfriend and girlfriend cohabitat and get, or even like brothers and sisters or co-workers, who gives a shit. You can really get by rather quickly with two people. And if you have a part-time job or a full-time job, minimum wage, you can get by on that. But I just fear for the fact that our tax money is just going to go into the private healthcare industry. There's not much we can do about without controlling the cost. But that's too much to solve at once. It's just too many things to juggle at once. I get it.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the big conflicts that I've seen. Sorry to cut you off there, Tanner. That I see is trying to balance out, the having a bit of a government where they step in and they provide for you, whatever, and then having a free market. It's what should be considered a need, and more public sector, and what can we leave as the private sector, and how can we approach that in such a way that everybody's has their basic needs covered, but they also have a life that's they feel is worth living.
Yeah. And I don't think you can cover basic needs without some of this, right? If we're not going to raise minimum wage, if we're not going to fix inflation, if we're going to do any of these things, if we're not going to attach the RICs and give it back to people, it's inconsequential.
Yeah.
And I'll give an example down here in Dallas. Where the company I work for, I'm down here helping with a project, right? And the big thing that comes up all the time is wages, right? Because Amazon's putting some corporate offices down here. There's a bunch of people putting more manufacturing, right? So what do you think is going to happen? They're going to drive up the price of labor, which isn't bad if all it does is just drive up the price of labor. And so if they can increase a minimum wage, we're going to have to pay more money, which means we pay more in corporate taxes for healthcare and all the other things. Right. And I don't disagree that we need to fix the healthcare system so they stop, bleeding the average American and the average middle income or low income business, right?
Right.
But if we don't give these people the money, they can't survive.
Absolutely.
And that's the problem.
Yeah.
That's the biggest problem.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know how to survive. And it's funny because some of these people I work with, like I'm interacting and training them, and they're talking to me and they're telling me all these different things about how they have two jobs or they like the overtime. Well, you know why they like the overtime? Because they were able to afford a car that didn't break down on them. They were able to afford the $1,000 a month rent payment because it's freaking Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's insane to me.
Wait, I'm sorry. I have to ask. $1,000 a month that's expensive rent?
For our area, yes.
Wow, that just kind of goes to show a big difference in demographics for us. If you can find somewhere for $1,000, it's like a bedroom.
See, I actually rent a 2-bedroom house, and I have my own. It's an actual home on property at the end of a dead end road, nice and quiet, like 100 yards from a lake, for $900, and that includes utilities.
What?
Yeah, I live minimalistic like a motherfucker.
Like my wife and I, we rented a 2-bedroom condo. We were paying $12.50 a month, so that included our water and our electricity. We had to pay for our own internet, cable, whatever other luxuries. But I mean, with internet, we've got streaming services. Who the hell needs TV? Sorry about that. Still getting over this damn cold. And we were paying $12.50 a month just for living, and that was cheap. Like my boss at the time, she had another unit in the same building, and she was asking. She goes, "I'm just kind of curious. What are you paying?" And I said, $12.50, and she goes, "Whoa, we have a tenant in our unit, and they're paying $16 a month." And I'm like, "What? $12.50 is cheap for rent?" It's just that just kind of blows my mind to think, and I'm talking Canadian bucks.
That's I think all of it comes down to what is the average wage there? What's your minimum wage there? Are you making $15 an hour? Or are you making $25 an hour?
At the time, minimum wage was just over $10 an hour. Right now, it's 15. No, it's really not.
Even 15 is not enough.
Yeah, even at 15, that's not enough.
Oh, in Alberta, it sure shit is not enough. But
wow,
I live in Conservatopia, so that's too much to be paying the people who make you money.
Yeah. How ungrateful.
I know, right? How dare I demand that somebody who's making money off of my labor actually pay me reasonably well?
Yeah.
I don't know. And that's the crazy thing. When we talk about the environment, we talk about what happens around here, right? We have to look at those things. We have to look at what these people pay, what goes on, where does it happen? And down in Dallas, the big thing here, right, is that minimum wage is probably $10 an hour, but most people probably can make $13 to $15 an hour. But when your rent is just off the charts,
yeah,
how do you do it? I mean, and this guy I work with, and I won't say what he makes, but this guy I work with makes not enough. He has 4 kids. His wife passed away.
Oh,
and we were talking about dogs, right? And he was like, "Oh, you got dogs?" I was like, "Yeah, I got 2 dogs and this and that." And he's like, "I don't know how you afford them." And we got into it. And then I felt bad. I was like, "Man, I really feel bad." And I felt like saying, "Hey, you should move to Michigan because for what you make, you can live in Michigan and probably save, $400 a month."
Yeah.
Because depending on where you live is what you pay in rent. My house payment is $750 a month or something like that.
Right.
But I have a small house. I got a deal on my loan, all sorts of different things. So like it compiles that.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't get those things,
it's tough.
Yeah.
Think about what that does for you and your paycheck.
Absolutely.
And when you and your wife have to work just to make ends meet,
there's a problem.
Well, think about this: $1,000 a month in rent. That's $6.25 of every hour you work is going to your rent. So you make $10 an hour. That gives you $3.75 to live off of.
Yeah,
that's insane.
I don't know.
Am I crazy?
No.
Is that you?
And that's the thing here is like when you talk about what people make and what they pay in rent, it's crazy. Like it's funny. My son was talking to me about this, and it's we had all these other things planned, but I think this is kind of where we direct the show, right? And this is where the show ends, is because my son is in this finance class, which I'm happy for. And I'm happy that he's able to learn and help put a budget together and all these other things. Excited for that. But he thinks that what he makes an hour at my work is going to pay for his apartment, allow him to pay for his car insurance, his car, and go to school full time. And I told him, I said, you make less than $14 an hour, man. It's not going to happen. Yes, it is. I'll live with a friend. Here, my finance teacher taught us how to do all these things. And I said, what is your average rent going to be? He's like, $800. And I was like, you're going to be living in a single bedroom apartment. He's like, well, your house payment is cheaper than that. I was like, that's because I got a deal on my house. You know, I knew people. It wasn't this, you know, like I didn't magically like make this appear. Most people don't get this. I got lucky. I'm not investing a lot in my house right now. Like I'm not doing a bunch of repairs. And on top of that, we talk about, you know, where I live and where you want to live. You can go live downtown Grand Rapids, maybe for that. Or maybe Wyoming. But you're not going to live in the same area. You're not going to live in Zealand. You're not going to live in a small community. You're not going to live by all these other things because your rent's just going to be atrocious. And I told him, I said, an apartment costs $850 a month for one bedroom. Oh, I know. That's okay. That's okay, Dad. Well, you're going to pay that by yourself? No, my friend's going to live with me. So you're going to share a bedroom with him? Oh, no. One of us will sleep in the living room. Okay.
For a while.
You figure out how to make that work.
Yeah, good luck.
Yep. You better.
And I said, wait till you try and bring a girl or a boy home. Yeah. Something's going to happen, man.
You better have some bunk beds. That's all top bunk.
Exactly.
Oh, that could just be code for, you know, who's taking which position.
Oh.
Just saying.
All right. Man, you took that on the fucked up tangent.
That's balls.
I'm just trying to think practically.
in code.
Yeah, why not? I mean, it's you know, almost on the same level as putting the sock on the doorknob, just so everybody knows.
Yep.
Well, the topic I wanted to talk about, and it was funny because we wanted to go into an environmental episode, but we kind of went a whole different tangent. But that's okay. I like that. The last segment is light pollution isn't just a problem for stargazers. And I think it's important to talk about because, and this is kind of going to become a theme for us, because one of the big things that we talk about when we talk about politics is we talk about their positions, right? And for me, the big thing is if we're not going to take care of environmentalism, we can talk about what you make and what your house payment is. It's not going to matter in 10, 20, 30 years. It's just not going to matter. We're all going to be in heat distro and we're going to fucking be dead.
Yeah, wait, what?
So, yeah, you didn't know you're going to be dead.
Well, that makes me sad.
Anyway, moving past that before you figure out that and get really depressed.
Too late.
There's just so much that goes into environmental science that we're ignoring. And we talked a little bit about, you know, Greta. I don't know how to pronounce her last name.
Thunberg.
There you go. And we talked about her before, and, you know, people want to make fun of it and they want to hate this whole big ordeal. But in the long run of things, she's right. We have to have a conversation about environmentalism. And if we don't, we're just doing ourselves a disservice. So for the last segment, the big thing I wanted to talk about is what's happening with light pollution. And do you think it affects you? Voice? Anyone?
Not really.
Oh, see, there we go. That's what we're looking for. Okay.
Not as nearly as any kind of other concern I have with actual carbon dioxide and pollution and the oil and the water, you know, pollution and the fucking the pollution of the land. I mean, light is last on my list, I think.
You think?
Yeah, I think. I don't know enough. Let's put it that way. That's what I'm saying. Off top, no. I'm skeptical.
All right, fair enough. So the Scientific American article talks about how insects numbers are dropping around the world.
Oh,
And while you and I may say, hey, we don't want insects, we don't want, the mosquitoes, we don't want the bugs, we don't want all these other things, with the decline, don't you think that affects the environment?
absolutely.
All right.
Yep.
Well,
So
yeah.
if that affects the environment,
I'm already wrong.
and light pollution is the main cause of that, light pollution it essentially affects your life in the same ways other pollution aspects do.
Yeah. Yep. As soon as you said insects, I said, "Oh shit!" I knew it was immediately erroneous.
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 And I almost feel like renaming the episode Insect Apocalypse because they used that in the article and I missed that. And I just think that's hilarious.
Insect apocalypse, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. We've all dreamed about a world without insects, but have we ever thought of the consequences of it? I mean, other than the fact that, our backyard barbecues would be a lot more enjoyable and whatnot. But no, I didn't realize that this was going to be as big of a problem for them. I mean, I figured that with how quickly they can adapt and how quickly they can evolve because of how short their generations are, that it would be less of an issue. I mean, they're fundamental to the environment. They help with so many different things in terms of the ecosystem. When it comes to plant reproduction, they spread pollen and seeds and other shiznit like that around. They help us with our honey, and insects are kind of like they're being eyed as another source of protein for mainstream diets just because of how plentiful they are. But I didn't realize that this was going on too. Like, damn.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing right here, right?
Well, I have
Is
a
they
funny
talk
analogy
about
for this.
how. Go ahead.
Oh,
Boys.
oh, so yeah, Chris. Sorry, you're on like a delay of some sort on my end. I was gonna say like insects are the plankton of the air. Without plankton, there's no food source for the largest animals and some of the smaller animals too. So a lot of birds and other small vermin eat insects that are smaller to become adults. Without insects, there is no adult of a lot of these food chain, smaller animals, and that would disrupt our entire system if there's no insects to start off with to feed the smaller animals.
Yeah,
that would screw things up.
Well, yeah,
exactly. And it's the artificial light that's what's killing it. So the article talks about Allen, which is basically essential artificial light at night. And essentially it's talking about how the interference for the development and movement, foraging, reproductive success will help diversify the species. And that's the thing is, so we have these lights, right? And you and I it's at night. We're on computers. I have lights in my hotel room. I have my cell phone going. In the corner, right, I got the TV and the iPad going. That's a lot of artificial light. And while it's an energy suck, which is a problem too, we have that problem as well. At the exact same time, the problem with how it affects the environment is through the bug repopulation. And I think the big thing here is if we don't talk about it, we can't fix it. That's the first thing. And if we don't talk about it, then people will just think it doesn't matter. And it's kind of funny because my brother-in-law is a hippie, right? And he's come over to my house many times. And before my father-in-law passed away, we had a day and we were all hanging out. And all of a sudden he walks through my house and he turns all the lights off. Just like turns them all off. And we're like, what are you doing? And he's like, it's like energy conservation hour. I was like, what? And my father-in-law is like, Joe, turn the lights on. And he's like, but we're going to be conserving energy. And my father-in-law was like, Joe, turn the lights on. I'm not kidding. I can't see. You're going to turn the lights on. So, Joe turned one light on. It's like, hey, well, let's compromise, folks. And it's funny because my father-in-law, if he had understood the reasons behind it versus it just randomly being sprung on him, would have been all for it. He would have been like, oh, hey, that's a good idea. Okay, I understand what you're going for. Let's prep for this. Maybe we burn a candle, whatever. And the funny thing is that, Joe just sprung it on him. So therefore, he had a hard time with it. But the principle goes to show is the fact that if we all do a little bit of something, and that's what this article talks about. If we do a little bit of something, we can help stop the Allen from killing the insects.
Oh. So you mean like if everybody takes one little step in the right direction, all of a sudden, like that's a lot of steps taken, right?
Yes.
Huh? So if like everybody does just a little thing, like with global warming, then we could drastically reduce carbon emissions.
Yeah, essentially.
Whoa. Mind blown.
So I should turn off my light outside in the summer so I don't feed my pet.
Yeah, well, it's a pet spider, though. Why are you feeding it?
Well, the thing is, though, is like
Oh, boy.
spider. I've noticed that a lot of spiders, they like to hide or like they build their webs around my outdoor porch lights because of moths and other nocturnal things. So the problem is that like turning my light on at night, it brings bugs to them. So I'm feeding them.
So maybe that's good for the environment?
Now I'm confused.
I'm confused, too.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So maybe we'll just like have a porch light and let that
It's
be
good for
that,
the
so that we
spider.
can feed those spiders. We can feed a couple of spiders, and then we can just kind of like they'll build a community all in that area. It's fine. But
That's fair. All right.
So-
Well, I think we've broached the subject enough. I think that the conversation around environmental conservatism needs to continue. It's going to be a topic for the next show because we're going to have a conversation about how all of the candidates fit this mode, right? Because if we don't have that conversation, then we're back at the beginning, right? And we should not be voting for candidates that don't want to support environmentalism. Maybe not the spiders. I don't know. I'm kind of torn between allowing the spiders to exist or not. I think it's Zelda when you all say that. Like think of the big spider that goes and you got to like shoot him with a bow and you're like, holy crap, he's gonna eat me. I can't remember what he's called, but there's tons of them in one of the Link games. I hate spiders, but I hate snakes more. So if we can figure out how to eliminate snakes without impacting the environment and keep the spiders, I'm okay with that. It's a win-win for me.
No, I like snakes.
I had a pet snake for 7 years.
All right, I'm going to eject both of you from the podcast right now.
Aww.
Both of you removed. Consider yourself fired.
The beard.
The beard. Yeah, we got to call it the beard cast, except for Buddy and Hannah can't seem to fucking grow a beard to save their lives. So it's just you and me, boys.
I got a couple of years before apparently my facial hair will fill out. So
fair enough.
It's my peaceful protest, Trump.
Fair enough. All right, thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We'll be back next week with another Cellar Door Skeptics. Enjoy our show and have a good night, everyone.
Bye.